Rob. Welcome to Stream Street Day 54. Day 54. It's been a long road getting from... That's a Star Trek intro, which I'm not going to sing for you anymore. But hello, welcome to Desert Sketch. What up, buddy? Welcome to the show straight off the bat. Fucking, you're such a ledge. So hello, welcome to Stream Street Day 54. Today's show is going to be just me talking, doing some hobby. So if you don't want to listen to a man ramble to himself, then don't listen to the podcast. But if you are listening to the podcast, please stay hydrated. Get yourself some water. I changed my life getting a water bottle. I don't know what it is. Maybe I'm a child. Maybe the idea of just like having it in a little sippy cup is the future. But this really elevated me. I always know it needs to be full, so I always drink more, which is the smart play. But yes, we are 100% could talk about that Elf Rules Desert Scratch if you want. MJ Pegasus, what up, buddy? Easy now, an actual paint can. I know, I did a little hands thing. The awkward thing about where to put it is, basically, where I put the camera in the office is actually really important because the rest of the office is a bit of a crap hole. After this show, over the next couple of days, I'm gonna try and do behind here, so it's got kind of like a YouTuber style vibe, so it looks fancier, which is obviously awful, and I hate it. Kind of wish you could just film these in the pub. That would be the best. I mean, there's a bar downstairs I could set it up in. That would be weird. Anyway, welcome to the show, Warmaster. Desert Sketch. We'll talk about the new Elf Rules in a minute if you want, happily. But I set myself up a little cam so you can see what I'm working on, because I would actually like to get some hobby done. I've got these 3 Gaunt Summoners of Tzeentch. I know, I'm an awful person. That I'd like to get finished off, mainly because I then want to get my Gazgul Thraka done that my friend Jimmy 1080 sent me. So I've promised myself that I'm only going to do 1 unit at a time. So the rest of my hobby side now is clear of projects, which is not how I normally work. I normally have like 8 bits there that I plan to use at some point, and then 32 bits, and then I'll buy a new army, and then it's everywhere. So I haven't done that now. I've now been like super good, and I've just put stuff away, and I'm just like, only this gets done. So I keep looking at it, and it's there, and it motivates me. So that's really nice. So I'm just one job at a time. I don't know if you guys have done the same, but yeah. Anyway, if you join us live, wherever you join us live from, so like Warmaster, what up? Sorry again, the propagation, Hermanista, how you doing? Hookapin, how you doing? And Korg, hey bud. And bar on Saturday, thanks for subscribing. I'd love to go to the bar on Saturday with you when the lockdown's over. Let's do it. Reverend Dangles. What's up, Rev? Only a day till you're at work tomorrow. Sunday being the Rev's day, I think. Reverend's way cooler than... I think it's the coolest name for the clergy. I think the Reverend. The Reverend. Anyway, so I'm doing some painting. And I'm going to be taking questions off you. So I guess we could start off with exactly what... Desert Sketch talked about, and we can talk about the new Elf Rules that we've seen, which is pretty big. Now, I read them yesterday, and they are pretty tense. I'm going to get my phone out. This is how... See, this camera thing is not working. I don't know why. The desk camera hates me. I'm going to deactivate and reactivate it. You can get a bit of the smog face. I think it's because I've got it into a USB port. I don't think it's gonna vibe with us today, everyone. Anyway, are they on an official site, or are you recording it from memory? No, they're on the official site, MJ Pegasus. They're not the rules. So this is my screensaver, by the way. My screensaver is a corgi dog that's also a knight. Don't know if you guys are interested right there. I'll keep that off screen. Whoops. But let's go look at the rules. I can open it up on the web browser. I just don't like to do that in case it shuts the internet down, because Chrome's a hungry bitch for the internet. Let's go find it out on the Warhammer community site. Let's do it together. Okay. So the Elf Rules are actually cool, but they're also problematic in some ways as well, because I feel like I was having a long ponder about this last night. I wonder what you guys are going to think as well. I was thinking about the Seraphon book and how good it is, and how potent some of the units are, and how cheap Croak is, and what he does. And then I was thinking about Flesh Eater Corpse. So Flesh Eater Corpse was Skaven with this like purely new level of army book. They were just like way above everything else that we'd seen previously. They were like obnoxious. And then it was about this time last year, so with the Seraphon release and the Elf release, it's about this time last year that was the same time the Flesh Eater Corpse book came out, so just after Sheffield Slaughter, or just during Sheffield Slaughter. And then I pondered it, and I was like, well, to be honest, the Seraphon book's way stronger, probably stronger than anything that's come before. So how do I feel about some of the stuff that we've seen for the Elves? And I don't want to be like, oh no, the world's falling, because I don't think that's the case. But I do think some of the stuff, specifically the set of rules that we're seeing here, is very strong in comparison to things that we've seen before. So we'll talk about that if you want. So they were talking about the Light of Eltharion. So that is the kind of ghost suit of armor, which is a special named character, so Eltharion. So it's not like you're going to take loads of these. So it's a unique, special elven fighting character, which is sweet, which is really sweet. But we've seen some information come out about Eltharion, and it's really strong. So again, you're only going to have one of these, but it's a super strong, super strong. So it's got 7 wounds with a 3-up armor save. So that's great. 7 wounds is bonkers. So the Arc Regent's got 7 wounds, but there's some notable heroes that aren't bumped up to the 7 wound category. So 7 wounds is decent. Hey, by the way, K-Dread, Scott B, Azrank, I see you all. Nice seeing you here. Yes, and that 3-up save is unrendable. It's also unmodifiable, so you can't turn it into 2-up save, but it's an unrendable 3-up armor save. He also halves all damage coming in from shooting and from combat. So he's effectively got 14 wounds, unless you do some mortal wounds to him via magic, which I'm guessing if you're trying to go up against Teclis is probably not going to happen. But this is one of the things that I've been talking about in comparison between Age of Sigmar and 40k. Oh my god, I'm saying that like Val. 40k. You got to say it 4DK if you want to sound like a Canadian. 40k. Nailed it. I'm going to do that every time now. 40k. So it's 7 wounds because he halves all damage coming in. So effectively, like, you have to do twice as much damage is how I mean Desert Sketch. Unless you're not happy with that math, in which case that's fine. Also, big up Mr. Teach for subscribing, and everyone who subscribes, and everyone on this will get a Patreon. You guys are fucking legends. Couldn't do it without you. Thank you. This is great. Ooh, I love talking to you guys. I like having one of these days. I woke up today in the mood. It was like, I'm just going to talk to the Twitch chat. Really happy about it. The podcast guys might be like, these are the worst, which is fine. I can understand that, but for me, they're just really positive. Yeah, MJ Pegasus, this guy is good. I'll put a link in the chat so you guys can read it. So anyway, so he's got a 3-up unrendable save, halves all damage coming in from combat and shooting. Now that doesn't include magic, as I've said, yeah, and it does nothing against damage 1 attacks. You're right, but Mystic Shield is so good in this situation. A 3-up unrendable save of Mystic Shield. This guy is not going down quickly. Now, I don't know what the maths is. Hey, Chuckle Buddy. But I wonder if someone might be able to do the maths on it, but it's very survivable. Very survivable. Then, in close combat, and this is the difference between Age of Sigmar and 40k, are on-foot characters. Now, there's a picture of him lined up against the Mega Boss on foot. And the Mega Boss on foot is a good example of what I mean. He's an actual combat character that we have. Now, in 40k, a regular Space Marine captain is pretty scary. Like, in close combat, not to a horde of boys, but in a one-on-one, mano-a-mano situation is pretty decent. Now, in Age of Sigmar, that generally doesn't tend to be the case. They don't tend to have like a lot of output, whereas this guy is unbelievable. So he's got 4 attacks that hit on 2s, they wound on 3s, rend 3. Let's talk about how stupid it is that it's rend 3 in comparison. So he's got a magic sword, FYI. His soul has been put into his swords by Teclis. So this is a hero from before the Age of Myth, from the old world. His soul has been incorporeally re-energized. He was eaten by Sinesh, and then Teclis taking his soul out, putting it inside his swords. All right, fair enough. So it's magic. It's high-level magic, yeah? But a Dreadsaurian's teeth aren't Ren 3. Like, really what we're talking about is armor penetration, the ability to cut through stuff. And I guess the answer here is magic. He's just done magic, but it's I don't know. He's very good. And the point I'm trying to make between the Age of Sigmar characters previously, especially the ones on foot, and the Age of Sigmar the 40k characters, is that. Sorry, I'm trying to suppress a sneeze, and it's clearly not working. It's gonna snowball for a minute. Is the there we go. Is the 40k characters genuinely are good at that counter charge role? Like if you put them in your lines, as much as they might be like a buff support piece, they also can hit and do some pretty solid damage, which is great. Yeah. And that's what you want. The characters in Age of Sigmar have rarely actually done this. But they've got a profile now which is bonkers. So 4 attacks, hits on 2s, wounds at 3s, Ren 3, which I think is stupid personally, because that's crazy good. D3 damage. Now here's where it gets really interesting, because you add 1 to the wound rolls for attacks made with this model's Fang Sword of Aetherion, which is the one we were just talking about, if you made a charge move in the same turn. In addition, if the unmodified wound roll for an attack made with this model's Fang Sword is a 6, it inflicts a mortal wound in addition. However, he's also got the rule Supreme Swordmaster, which is sweet. I like the idea that the Swordmasters will be getting like some sort of buffs. Ignore negative modifiers when making hit rolls, which is crazy. So he always hits on 2s. Don't change your mind. Doesn't matter what you do to try and mitigate this dickhead. He's going to hit on 2s. In addition, if the unmodified hit roll for an attack made by this model is a 6, the attack scores 2 hits in the target instead of 1. So 4 attacks that hit on 2s, and then 6s to hit are going to generate extra hits. Any of those to wound, if he's charged wounded on 2s, or it would be 3s, any of those to wound are going to be an additional mortal wound. Ren 3, which is as good as mortal wounds, D3 damage. It's crazy. But it's good as well, because it's nice to see an actual on-foot character that can do damage. And he's also got that survivability, that 3-up armor save, unrendable. They've got the survivability so that he can also be in combat as well. He's a one-man unit, which I don't hate. It's nice to see a unit. Like, his points cost somewhere like 200, 220. Feels like that would be decent. He's better than like an Old Blood on a Carnosaur. Old Blood on a Carnosaur absolutely will do more damage than this guy, but it won't get to where it needs to be because it's too slow and therefore won't survive. This guy will at least get somewhere. So it's got some pretty on-the-nose rules, but it's also decent, right? And it's nice to see a combat character, especially on foot, being given rules that make sense but aren't oppressive. Because even if you max out his damage, he's going to do 12 damage with his Fang Sword. And then he's got a blade as well, which is 2 attacks, 2s, 3s, Rend 1 and D3 damage. So he's only really got 6 attacks. And it's, yeah. Apparently it's 180 points for the armor. How do you know that, War Master? Great, please. So it's probably new. Let's see what you guys are saying in the chat. Press your tongue against the top of your mouth to cancel any sneeze. No, when I used to teach martial arts, one of the things, if you've ever done a thigh stretch, so basically you stand up straight, you grab one of your legs by the ankle, you pull it like into your bum, so you're pulling your thigh, and you stood on one leg. People always used to get a bit spinny. I always tell them to put their finger on their nose, and that would stop them falling over. It doesn't. I just really enjoyed watching people just stood there looking super weird. It was a really good time. Depending on his costs, says Eric, he will be a cheaper version of Gotrek without the obvious flaws. Real power piece. I think he is a real power piece, but he's also a good combat character on foot. And how rare is that? You think of Gotrek. So I think of my friend Nathan running the Unforged. He would always run a dispossessed character, the Unforged, and he would run him in mixed order, and he'd give him eventually he managed to get him up to +4 to wound. And one time he just wiped out a unit of my Kadai, and I was like, what the fuck is going on? But it's because you don't really expect little on-foot characters to be decent, but they should be decent. They're these legends, especially if they've got these really cool magical swords and artifacts. Still, makes me laugh about the Tree Lord, obviously. Melk says 180 would be mental. The Trog boss needs to drop by 100 points then. It's a really good point. Chukabit 6 attacks is plenty if he's completely unmodifiable and hits on 2+. Agreed. And also Ren 3 on 4 of those attacks means you're not really getting saves. So Brad Pitt Lord says 250 plus easily, to be honest. Yeah, he's a tiny Gotrek. Yeah, but he's not. He's very, very good. And he's going to be very unstoppable in the right matchups. I mean, that unrendable 3+ save is crazy survivable. Halving the damage means he might be able to take on like a Maw Crusher, like, comfortably as well, which is super scary. But I like the idea that, I don't know, he's very good, and the points are going to change how I feel about how good he is on the tabletop. And he's an oppressive piece, so when you play against him, you're going to get the feel bads. And I'm not really for oppressive pieces in the game, and I don't like feel bad moments. But I also like the idea that they're going to create these war dancer style elven heroes. Because how really do you explain the power of something like this without giving it rules to match? And it also seems that they're finally understanding how to create rules for survivability. So when you don't see it on a unit, I'm thinking about the old Blood on Carnosaur, you understand as rules writers that they actually know how to make something survivable. Here's a great example. Yet they haven't done it for these other units. So why isn't it as good? Or why does it cost so much? Yeah, but Helgi, how are you doing, buddy? Over on Facebook, yeah, he will die to mortal wounds, though. He's just going to get crushed by mortal wounds because he doesn't halve damage in the magic phase. So a couple of D3 mortal wounds here and there, and he's going to go down. Now, elves, traditionally, especially high elves, they always dealt in high magic. So the Slan, and I don't know if you remember much about 8th edition, or if you remember much about the lore as was before. High magic was one of the kind of spell laws that were available to high elves, and traditionally there was also some sort of healing mechanic inside the high elf book. So if there's a healing mechanic with this guy, a bit like when we talk about Gotrek and his survivability, this guy could be genuinely very scary. Also, getting off mortal wound output against this guy in a high elf army, oh my god, what are they called? The Shadowlands of Malarian. They are called what are these guys called? The Lumineth Realm Lords. That's what they're called. I lost myself. So MJ Pegasus says surely it cost the high 200s, low 300s. Yeah, 220 seems right. 220, 240. But it depends what the rest of the army does. Obviously, that's his rules that we've seen. We haven't seen the Lumineth Realm Lords main rules. So we haven't seen their battle traits for the legions of Lumineth Realm Lords. What if they have every unit can strike first, or one unit every phase can strike first? That's going to double down on his efficiency and his saves. We don't know what their spell lore is going to look like, so they might have a spell that doubles attacks, double speed. We also don't know what the base move of elves. In fact, we do know what the base move of elves is, because we've got loads of examples of it. So Phoenix Guard are Phoenix Guard are movement 6. So pretty nippy, but pretty still on the low mobility end of the spectrum. So if this guy is just a guy on foot doing movement 6, he's not going super fast, right? Like, you're not going to be able to kite him, but you don't have to worry about him jumping over. That's why the real big threats that you see in game, Eels, Keepers, Ghoul Kings on Terrorgeist, Maw Crushers, these things that have hit you super hard, they have really high mobility as well. So, imagine this guy attacking twice. Don't want to. I think they did say on one of their recent podcasts that they feel like the activation wars they'd gone too far with it, and some of the fighting and attacking twice was also an issue as well. So hopefully they're going to start to scale that back in the later books. MJ Pegasus is a decent hammer without being ridiculous and isn't made out of glass, so people can get maybe 2 or 3 rounds out of him. That's what I think. I think he's a good on-foot character, and it might be nice to see some actual baller on-foot characters without having to take monsters. I don't hate the idea of an army book having 2 or 3 like legendary characters that maybe not as good as this sometimes, but maybe needs the survivability of something like this so they can go get in a fight and actually battle it out. Because I don't want it to be Hero Hammer, but I don't mind there being... You don't generally tend to have any on-foot melee characters, right? Unless you guys can think of some notable examples. Ignoring Gotrek, obviously. Thanks, Scratch Marks, for following. Well, we don't know the magic and buffs yet, as well as the rules for him. What if they are always 5/1? Yeah, so we talked about that. But he is not an elf, he is magic. That's true. He's the soul of an elf inside armor, so he might be bigger than movement 6. But it's a fair assumption that he's going to be movement 6. But let's find out in the future. Well, he's not an elf, he's an armor, so he can move different. That's fair, yeah. When they pick units, they pick 2. It's... oh, yes. You're right, Helgi. I'm so sorry. They have. That was before the lockdown, right? It's been a while. I need to start reminding myself. I'm going to go through all the articles after the show. They've already actually said that in the charge phase, when you charge with these guys, you get to activate one and then the other. So you get to pick the first 2 activations in the combat phase. So this guy, someone else can go, and then this guy can go. Oh shit. Hey Smorgan. Hey Smorgs. Phoenix with the Hydroxine Cloak kills him in the movement phase. Yeah, he does. Yeah, he does. Well, if you don't roll that 1, that'll be annoying. Wonder what the delivery will be like to get him into combat. I think it'll be Gotrek situation. Diadrin, that's the point, right? He's good, but if there isn't a way to make him move any faster, it's more manageable. And ultimately, even things like salamanders poking at him from downrange, or a ton of horror shots, or a bunch of skinks with blowpipes. In fact, a bunch of skinks with blowpipes might just pop him, to be honest. Do you know what? Even talking to Smorgan yesterday, those 30 Volkite Berserkers with sling shields might half kill him in the shooting phase as they charge in, and then they'll go and hit. And that's the problem with on-foot characters in Age of Sigmar. They're not survivable. You want them to be these legend, he's the captain. It's cool, 2 endless spells have killed him, and you're like, fuck. So they do have a problem with the design of small on-foot characters, the same way they have a problem with monsters in Age of Sigmar. Whereas characters on monsters, Frostart Phoenix, Ghoul King and Terrorgeist, Vampire and Zombie Dragon, fucking pick one, great, yeah? Just monsters, Charybdis, Cockatrix, pick a thing, then they're just not as good. They need to be a little bit cheaper, maybe do a little bit more, is my opinion, from a review perspective. But that obviously you all have got an opinion, and I'd like to hear it in the chat. This is going nice today. I'm enjoying myself. Okay, wonder what punchy foot characters. Remember when Scar Bloodwrath was a beefy thing? Oh, Pete. Also, hey Pete, how you doing? Yes, Scar Bloodwrath was a dude, and also he was cool because he had a mechanic to make him survivable, or he died and he would come back and could fight again. So the process of him being survivable, I mean, they've done a good job with the Arc Regent as well. 7 wounds and heals 3 a turn is pretty ludicrous. So they're starting to understand how to create these beefy characters that are on foot. I just hope that they don't over-egg it. But I think... and also, as much as this guy is decent in a fight, and this is a key element to remember, as we've talked about, he can probably average between 8 and 12 damage a turn in combat. Maybe it's a little bit higher than that, actually, if you spike more mortal wounds. But... He's not gonna hold an objective. There's one of him. If he clears everything off the objective, great. But he's not gonna hold the objective on his own. So he's good, but again, there's that problem with single models, right? He has to have weaknesses to balance his strength. So if that's lowish movement and susceptible to mortal wounds, then it creates a character that needs to be played well. Agreed. Can't even hide in the corner of the table now because Croak will burn them anywhere. That's true. You also can't live now in Age of Sigmar. Croak's going to kill this guy by 2 or 3. So the guy's going to have to run forward. But if you can do an army and teleport with him, yeah, I think if you teleport with him, he'll be fine. But he's not going to be disastrous if you teleport with him because he's still what's he going to? I like it. Right, so give me a rating, you guys, in the chat. Out of 10, what you're rating him, and the rating is based on do you like what they've done with an on-foot character? I think that's the rating. For me, it's a good 8 or 9. They've created a good on-foot character that doesn't seem mental right now. We haven't seen all of the rules, but when we do see all of the rules, we might see if the issues that he has, specifically the delivery system, are available. Do I think that the character targeting rules from 40k would be a good addition to AOS? Not at all, Dydrin. Not at all. Not unless every army had the capacity to put some sort of sniper character inside. Yeah, we are, Chris. We are talking about that elf dude. Yeah, so Desert Sketch says 3, Cage Red 7.82. Nice. In that context, he's a strong 8. Good. 8, 7. Croak will be a menace against Big War. That depends on his buff characters. Yeah, it's very true. 1 out of 10 because I'm sure they won't sell him outside of the box. Oh no, that's awkward. Smorgan 7.3, Warmaster 9, auto include at the minute what I know from the rules. 7 till I know about the movement, says Gorka Morka. Yeah, and we're still learning that, right? And that's the thing. If you've got some friends in your local community who are like, oh my god, and he is comparable to other on-foot characters, way stronger than other units that we've seen. So there's that said, and I did have that conversation when I was thinking about what Smorgan said yesterday. This is what I do when I'm showering. I just think about Smorgan generally, and I was thinking about how good Croak is and how good the Seraphon are, and having played them a couple of times this week as well. Spoke to my friend Owen, who's just saying this is bullshit. And big love to my Seraphon family. It's about time we had the bullshit right. So I'm proud of you, and fuck everyone else. But we might be seeing that new uptick, that new spike in books that we saw last year with Flesh Eater Courts and Skaven. Then every book after that, ignoring Sylvaneth, seemed like a very strong inclusion into that kind of environment. So I'm looking forward to seeing what the rest of the Elven rules are. Honestly, just super hyped to see the new rules. Like, isn't it an exciting time when they enter new stuff into the mental landscape of our game? Like, it's thrilling. And I like what this guy could do in the combat phase. I like that I've got this kind of armored elf dude that could be jumping around and then murdering maybe even a Maw Crusher. Chris says, thinking of Croak, how many Saurus Guard on average do you think we will see shielding Croak? Just 10, 5 or 10, Chris. Probably not even that. It's about as much as you need. Pete says I'd go with 8. There's some good design. Points will be a factor. It's better rules than an Eidolon, and look at their point cost. Yeah, great point, Pete. Especially the combat Eidolon, which is the combat of the... It's the Eidolon, not the Eidolon of the sea. It's the Eidolon of the... Someone can remind me. But the combat Eidolon is cool, but he can't survive and doesn't survive, and his points are crazy. This guy is way better. So it's a bit of a shame, to be honest. I'm still salty about the Realm Shape engine being jank, says Gorka Walk. Yeah, I understand, bro. I think from OBR we had that spike already, so Warmaster. Honestly, OBR isn't... Well, I'm going to be careful how I say this to everyone. I think OBR isn't the worst. I think OBR is not very interactive to play, both for the player who's playing it and the people playing it, but I don't think it's obnoxious. It's just really, like, ignorantly strong. They're just like, we have a 3-up save. And you're like, sweet. We're re-rolling in combat. Fine. Like, okay, what the fuck? Like, and some of the spells are a bit jank. Like, it's quite a small book, really. It doesn't have a lot of options. And you try to look at the other options, and then you keep coming back to them. Mortek Guard, because you need those objectives. So... because you got to have bodies on the board, right? And I don't know. I just think it's not. Whereas Big War, if you haven't played Big War or seen Big War play, if you haven't had to fight Ard boys with hitting on 2s, wounding on 2s, yeah, like they just fucking suck. They fucking really suck. And obviously, the point I'm making is that Uruk Warclan's book came out before the Ossiarch Bone Reaper's book, so I think there's some real strength here as well. So I think, Eidolon of the Storm. That's it. As a combat character compared to the elf, nowhere near as good. Was hoping give us an artillery. Oh, give artillery battery. Yes, I think. See, the problem with the croak element now to the metagame is that he's hitting you from anywhere on the board, and you can't play that game because you've also got the threat ranges of the other elements of their army. I'll use my little hands. Oh no, the camera's broke. So you've got the threat range of the other elements of their army that you have to manage and mitigate and work around. So he's really an artillery piece that's just dumping stuff at the back of the board, unless he gets on a Balewind, and then he has his Ashcroft banner nearby, and then he controls like 36 inches of the whole board doing mortal wounds, and it becomes crazy obnoxious. So it just is crazy obnoxious. I've got nothing else to say about that, but I fucking love Croak. He's my favourite guy, so whatever. If it's just the Croak meta now, like, colour me biased, but brilliant. Just everyone's got a frog. I'm not complaining. Someone's like, what game are you playing? I'm like, it's kind of a high fantasy game, but honestly, at an event, all you'll see is dinosaurs. So really, it's a fantasy dinosaur game, and that's all we see. And everyone will be like, well, that sounds... Are you not bothered about the meta? I'm like, not really. It's just loads of dinosaurs. It's like fucking Jurassic Park. I'm not stressed about it at all. Like, now, if this was any other army book, I'd probably really salty and like really going on about it. You caught me out for being biased, and I apologise. I think the 6-month lag for point adjustment OBR will get hammered in GHB, similar to Sacrosanct being nerfed last year. I think that's also true as well. I think we won't see big war hit as much as you would have expected either. And I think you might still see some Flesh Eater Courts hits, which will seem really weird at this point. But I still think that you'll see some nerfs coming in there, but I don't know why. Helgi, what do you think about the chance of Seraphon being untouched in GHB 2020 because of the Rona? A potential year of salamander oppression. I absolutely think that that's going to be the case. If you guys are a little bit unaware, most of you maybe even know better than I, but like just to give everyone some context, every year Games Workshop releases the General's Handbook with points adjustments to them to all of the armies, or some of the armies, but normally all of them, and then they adjust stuff. But and that book goes to print like 2 to 3 months previous, which means it has to have been, they need to have thought about what's going to go into print a couple of months before it goes to print. So you've actually got like a 5-month delay. So let's say a book comes out and it's problematic at that 3-month point before the GHB comes out. It's not going to have its points affected by the upcoming GHB. Now, that was true last year also for Skaven and Flesh Eater Courts, and we did see online points changes and rules erratas to both of those. So they did create a PDF rules errata, which is a positive step by Games Workshop, and just a round of applause for them for doing a good job, because when they do a good job, we should say, you're doing a fucking great job. And that was excellent. They could have made some of the changes better, but they didn't, so whatever. But that's a different conversation. They did make some changes, so those changes being affected is a huge positive. So I'm hoping that we will see some changes to the Seraphon in the GHB 2020. Problem is, for everyone listening at home, is Games Workshop anecdotally gathers that information from tournament data, but not tournament data where they look at the actual stats, tournament data where they just have a couple of their mates have a phone call or a WhatsApp group with each other, and then they just randomly just take the opinion of some person, which is why you see points changes that don't seem to be as sensible as you would expect in some situations. That's not hyperbolic as well. Like, it's purely a nepotistic way of reviewing points as opposed to a thought-out professional process. But it kind of makes it more fun, so I don't really care. And also, if they did it really well, what would I ever talk about? It's like, well done, congratulations, let's fucking walk on. So what? Yeah, let's do some GHB 2020 predictions. I'm into that. I think that would be really fun. Sorg of the Souls. Come on, that's true though, right? That's so true. It'd be hard not to be. There will be at least a potential points update with a big winter at a big FAQ now. That's true. That's true. Also, we're all going to have to talk about this, guys and girls. It's very unlikely we're going to see large-scale tournaments for 6 months to a year, maybe longer. So, I being a tournament gamer and a coverage guy, super want them to happen, but we probably aren't going to see them in the way that we expect for a while. So we just got to like button down and accept that, and and this will have to be the place where we have a conversation about, oh well, this is because they're not going to have the information from those things, right? Because those large tournaments aren't going to happen. And that's why they do the changes. The GHB isn't for like Tim and Gary in their garage who are just like, yeah, this is my story. Like, I decided this guy is my general. Like, none of this. The GHB is for tournament gamers. End of fucking conversation. Like, that's what it's there for. Like, the points changes, the whole process, that's what we're all chomp at the bit at. And the Winter FAQ, same thing. So if there aren't tournaments, I worry that we're not going to get the same level of care. I hope so, though. Prediction, no more than 300 spells per army. Warmaster, that's a great prediction. Mortek Guard will drop to 100 points because they now get a hard time against shooting, and they're just like ghouls, right? So it's virulent. Yeah, they're basically the same as ghouls, only nowhere near the same as ghouls, and then always says that's an idiot. No double DPR, just one. Warmaster, I also agree with that. You're very well informed. Eidolon, get another 20 points cheaper. Still crap. I hope they just shave off another 10 points off each Eidolon. And we're like, I can't wait for GHB 2024. That's only 40 points. That's not enough. Hey, Elm, guess what? I really like blue paint. I really like you. You win a prize. Trog Herd 180 to 140. Trog Boss 270 to 250. Fungoid Cave Shaman down. I don't think the Fungoid Cave Shaman will go down, Milk. The Fungoid Cave Shaman's great. I can see the Trogs all going down, definitely. But the Cave Shaman is just decent anyway. It doesn't need a point exchange, I don't think. Grinaldi, if they will not reprint alliance rules for minor factions like Dispossessed, will they become illegal? Yeah, that's probably the thing that we'll see. The end of Legends units. But then we've been talking about the end of Legends units for like 3 years. Again, if you're not 100% certain. Inside the GHB, it's a whole set of points. Oh yeah, I don't think they're going to end Legends. They like flipped the script on us last year. Last year we thought Legends was going to end. So this is a whole bunch of units which are no longer in production by Games Workshop, or they no longer sell them. And so they've moved into Legends, where their rules and their points have been non-changed. But then in the GHB last year, for some unknown reason, like some sort of like mind-bending reason, they just reissued all of the points for the Legends when we were categorically certain that they were just going to stop supporting these out-of-production models like Tomb Kings, who they still updated. And it's just a wild ride last year. It was actually a really fun time. So I can't call that we're going to see Legends go away from the game. They might just give them new points. No idea why. The big thing that I think got pointed out yesterday on the show was that we might start seeing this thing called minion points. So we know about command points, and we use CP to use our command abilities. But the minion abilities that are findable on the Skink Star Priest, or the Skink Priest, whichever it is. I think it's the Skink Priest. Minion ability. So he's got a minion ability, which is like a prayer. Like on a 3+ you can do a thing. So we might start seeing more minion abilities, which are smaller heroes doing non-command abilities. So they're not giving commands, but they're doing a thing. Maybe it's a Seraphon unique thing. But if we see a new resource put into place, minion abilities, that will change the shape of the game, which is kind of interesting. And it definitely means that Seraphon is the latest version of a book, or of a generation of books, right? Elm says Art Regents are going to go down to 200 points, like God intended. Yeah. Also, we'll see new mechanic, just like last year we saw the merchant one. Yeah, we could see that. How about points for artifacts to reflect that they aren't all equal? That would be great. Rob, hero can use minion or command ability, not both. Oh, so wait. Okay. Hero or command ability, but not both. That'd be interesting. Is that a fact? Is that a fact that we've heard? If that's a fact that we've heard, I mean, I can't expect the change to capture range for the objectives. No. If you make it 3 inches, it's just way worse. because you could just like you can screen and flood objectives on 3 inches way too easy. 6 inches is the right call on objectives, not 3. 3 would be weird. Will GHB 20 make Beast of Chaos good somehow? They need a points change to do that? Can you make a points change to make them good? I guess so. I guess you could. I mean, you can make anything cheap enough that you can have a fucking lot of them. But Beast of Chaos maybe need a little bit more love and work. They definitely need some sub-factions, because everyone else has a layer of free rules on top of Beast of Chaos. So a set of free rules would be cool, I think, for Beast of Chaos. Do they need anything else? What are they lacking? Armor. But they've got bodies instead of armor, I guess, is the real. But then if you look at the effectiveness of armor in the game, Ardboys 4-up save, Fire Slayers 3-up save, 5-up 4+ DPR, Daughters. There are some notable examples of combat units that are combat units because they're also survivable at the same time. So I'm not sure the bodies argument really works. I mean, I guess you can make Bestigor like, I don't know, 280 for 30, and then you're into an interesting world. But it's just whether or not you can just punch through that many wounds, I guess, is the real issue. I think truthfully the Beast of Chaos need a new book, not a points adjustment. I want to see generic alliance artifacts that can be taken by any army in this alliance. I like that, Grinaldi. I like that a lot. That would be really funky. So just like, yeah, that's fun. Especially if they're like thematic. Especially the plus like get a command point one. You know, like inspiring. I like that, and I like the idea that the death one is just like, you're like 5+ steal a command point or something. You know, you like spooky and you steal the ability for your opponent to like work well or something. That would be really fun. I will paint my Swiftwalk agents before they're deleted from the game. Oh, great question. Someone will change character from who you summon has to be on the table at the beginning of the turn. So no chain summoning would be a great change. I think that only really affects a couple of armies, but I guess it's still a positive change if that goes in as a rule of 3. Do you think someone will change character? The trouble with weak factions being adjusted to more balance is that it is often more war scroll changes than points. Agreed with that as well. And in the case of some armies, for instance, Nurgle, we saw Nurgle not taken, but we didn't see Nurgle having the popularity on the tabletop, and were generally considered by me and other people to be as not strong as other army books. And as time has gone on since the Nurgle release, that has increased, you could say thricefold. One of these. But since the book of Legion of Chaos Ascendant, where they got a few sub-faction abilities, that was it. A few sub-faction bonuses. I'm sorry about the boom track. Since the Nurgle introduction, we've seen more Nurgle units. Well, we did see a few Nurgle armies hitting the tabletop. We saw a couple win the events. People generally thinking, I know Pete in the chat, who's a big Nurgle player, like big fan of them, he was saying that they've popped up. Darren was saying that same thing. So a whole bunch of people. So it only required those sub-faction abilities to make that book a bit stronger. That said, I feel that you could do some reworks on some of the information in the Beast of Chaos specifically, I guess. Especially if you compare Marauders to Bestigor. Like, Marauders versus Gore. Marauders versus Bestigor. Like, there's no competition. Marauders are just a million times better all the fucking time. So, also, if you win first roll-off, pick inside, you also deploy first. And if your army have the same number of drops, you also choose who goes first. There's a bit too much of a roll. Yes, Grinaldi. Great point. You roll and you choose sides and you deploy the first unit. It's a double bonus. So you're right. That should be a fundamental change. You roll, you pick side, or you get to deploy first. Those are your two options. You shouldn't get both. That's a wicked change. I would put that in definitely. And if not, I would suggest that as a tournament pack upgrade to every tournament pack. That's fundamentally a good idea, especially when you're using mystical terrain, especially when you're using that. So, like, yeah, you can go have that arcane terrain, but you don't get down to put down the first unit, I guess. In some situations, that's a bit of a bonus because some armies have got low drops anyway, and whatever it might be, but I think that's good. Chris in the chat saying desperately need some Sylvaneth ones then. Some Sylvaneth points drops would be really good, but I don't know what they could do points wise for the book that you can make Dryads really cheap. I mean, compare Dryads to Marauders, it's a fucking joke. Like, for your units. Circon, what up, buddy? Have a nice weekend, you have a nice weekend. Thanks for subscribing. In 40k, a person deploying second pick sides. That should be a thing in AOS for sure. I agree, Pete. In fact, I'm going to write that into some packs. Pete, let's do that. Let's just make people do that. Deepkin should get a sub-faction where they can take Eidolons as battle line. Yes, and Eidolons should be cheaper. Always. It's like the Sharks need a War Scroll rewrite, right? That's one of those things. The Sharks need a War Scroll rewrite. Yeah, there we go. I think that's... I've just run out of steam at that moment. Sorry about that. So if anyone's got any questions, but that was I just hit the wall there. I think I just been chatting for 40 minutes straight off, which is not what I was expecting. I was like, okay, I was going to hang out, do some chill hobby, but you guys got me yammering away. I guess just this is how exciting seeing new rules, like this new rule for the new elf. So you just see it, you're like, fuck, let's re-talk about the entire game again, start to finish. Chapter 1. Sharks don't need a War Scroll rewrite, they need Battalion to make them more fun, survivable, says Elm. That's a good... can we talk about that as well? That's one of the things that GW are missing. They've got this great ability to take a key unit in a book, and it can be, like, good in the book, but then they can make you pay to have it be way better by paying for a battalion. So they do have an optional way. So they're paying the points for units, but they have, like, and obviously you've got sub-factions which are free. So obviously that's not a good example, especially when you get into the imbalances like you see in the OCR book. But they do have a way to say, look at this battalion. This battalion makes these Sharks have double attacks and a 3-up unrenderable save, but it costs 300 points. And you're like, okay, so really I'm playing with 1,700 points worth of Sharks, but like I paid 300 points to make them that much better. So now I'm running Sharks, which is what I want to do, but I paid tons to get them viable on the tabletop. So there's like a lever that they can pull in their own rules writing, which they again don't manipulate at all. It's really sad, I would say, and my reasoning is that I love this game. And I think that they could have some genuine skill and talented people working on the rules element of it that we love, and we could end up with something truly fantastic, which is what I think we're all in love with sometimes. But that's just my 10 cents today. Yeah, the new elf seems pretty bonkers. Circon, I actually think, if you go back and listen to earlier on, not bad is my review of the new elf. He's good, but an on-foot character should be good. Just needs to be pointed right. Would making Eidolons summonable make them better? I don't think so. Although it could be a cool mechanic that you summon the Eidolon out of the sea. Like that wave is like, I've just emerged out of the sea. That would be fun. Henry Steele, great chat. Super pumped to dive into AOS once lockdown's over. Hey, dude, I'm super pumped to talk to you ever again. What a fucking great dude. Henry Steele, by the way, from Cult of Paint, if you want to go check those guys out. I think one of the main difficulties in Sylvaneth is that most things get better, more valuable in or around our wildwoods, but those haven't been designed to fit very well in the game, especially in competitive. Couldn't agree with you more. Yeah, like you can break the Sylvaneth down book like in loads of ways. Like it's a failure in understanding their own game state. The Sylvaneth book is one of the best examples of a true example of them not understanding the game. In some ways. However, that said, I think this elf is an example of them understanding the flaws that they have with some units in the game. If not by like grand like insight, by at least osmosis of like experience. They must have played with a bunch of on-foot characters before and be like, these guys fucking die. And then play with Gotrek and we're like, if he lives long enough to get there, freaking sweet. Because while Gotrek's output is bonkers, surely it's his survivability that is the true staying. Like, that's what really makes him sell, right? Um, okay, Chris, need one unit teleport lifted. The tree rotating on 3 plus allow get a DPR. I know the whole spell lore. Tree lords could also benefit from DPR. Bow hunters hitting on 3s. Ancient is a 2 cast. What? Why the ancient is it a 2 cast, Chris? Chris, you and me could like. Oh my god, we should start a Twitter thread. Why isn't the Tree Lord Ancient a 2 cast wizard? And if you don't know what we're talking about, in the Sylvaneth book, there is a wizard who is a giant treant powered by the magic of life itself, grown for maybe hundreds, maybe thousands of years, master in the arcane arts, cast 1 spell. A grot who's been alive for about 4.5 minutes, cast 1 spell, eats a mushroom, cast another spell. Just going to say. I don't know those right things. They could use those to summon Eidolons. Checks in the post. So Henry Steele. Cheers, man. Cheers, man. I can't wait to receive my 84p. But I'm into it. It's also a named character. Circon, you're absolutely right. It's a named character, the on-foot character. And like I said earlier, I just think what we really, really want is more on-foot character. In fact, actually, I'm going to take a scroll through my War Scroll Builder now and have a look at some on-foot characters that suck. So Tenebral Shard from Silver Tower, actually decent. Glass Cannon, but not a thing. Beast Lord, awful. Yeah, just awful. Great model, awful. Like, you're not going to see one. Doomball, is it more monstrous? Doomball could be okay. Is he survivable? No. Will he get there? Probably not. Bit crap. I know I'm talking Pizza Chaos first, but that's because it came through a B. Okay, Savage Big Boss. Nah, man. Like, this is the Savage Big Boss profile. 6 attacks, 3s, Ren 1, 2 damage. But he's got 6 wounds and a 6 up save. So if you ever wanted to use him as a combat character, he's never, ever going to get there. Now, he's obviously very cheap, but still not good. This is a great way of doing it. Just looking at to reiterate my point. Cogsmith. His job should be a support piece for artillery, so no. Right, a Warden King, right? This is a gangster dwarf with a hammer, right, covered in armor. He's got 5 wounds, 2 less than an elf. 2 less than an elf. He's not an elf, he's armor with a soul inside him. I get what you're saying, but it's still 2 less, right? Not about that. Yeah, 3 up save, fine. Move 4 inches. Okay, 4 attacks, 3s, Rend 1, D3 damage with no bonuses. Doesn't do extra hits, doesn't do mortal wounds, doesn't hit on a 2, isn't Rend 3, so just nowhere near as good. I'm just trying to point out that they can't do characters on foot well. Right, Anointed of Assyrian, so this is a Phoenix Guard elf. 5 wounds with a 4 up save. 4 attacks, 3s, Rend 1, 1 damage, is never going to kill anything. But his real job is to be like a support piece, right? With his command ability. But it would be nice if they gave those characters that support pieces also some punch in a fight. Henry Steele, yeah, good. Give me some Dwarden chat. You could genuinely do. Dwarves are the bestest. You could genuinely do some decent Dwarden builds, FYI, if anyone's interested. I know both Chris and Henry Steele in the chat at the same time. You guys are little dwarf fanatics. The Black Ark Featmaster is just a joke. Before we even get to him. An Assassin, joke. Nomad Prince, joke. Let's go through it here. Just like combat characters. Warrior... Oh no, this is Devoted Sigma. They don't exist anymore. Sorry. I'm just going through all the stuff that doesn't exist anymore. Why am I endless spells? Okay, right. Abhorrent Art Regent. They've smashed it with the Abhorrent Art Regent. Make some support, some melee. I think you could. I agree with what Circon's saying. You can make like a unit that's a support piece, right? Like a priest style character, and its only job is to support the units around it. I'm really into that because it makes your army better. Great. It also means your opponent can take that out from your army, and there's some good counterplay on the tabletop. I think that's really fun. In 40k, you sometimes have a little bit where it's a bit too far, where your support piece is also your damage dealer, and that can become problematic. But in some cases, they have a very specified kind of like damage dealer combat character, which we don't tend to, on foot, which we don't tend to have in Age Sigmar overlay. Hey Trog, okay, so we'll go through those. So the Art Regent, a good example. So the Uric Runefather, yeah, one attack. No, sorry, Latchkey, 3 attacks, hits on a 3, wounds on a 3, rend 1, and it's a giant fucking key, damage 3. So that's good. The damage 3 bit doesn't get any bonuses. It's got 6 wounds. It's got a 4-up save. You can't build him as a combat character. So he's probably not meant to be, but who is meant to be is a Grimwrath Berserker. Trog, do you really like blue paint? It's one of my favourite paints. Hey, 40k buddy. Right, the Grimwrath Berserker, right? Okay, a Dwardin whose entire, this is the narrative of Grimwrath Berserker. The power of Grimnir burns strongest in the hearts of the Grimwrath Berserkers. Covered in glowing runes of Urgold, they are avatars of destruction and endurance, hurling themselves through battle in a living storm of blood and flame. Okay, so that's what they are. He's got 4 attacks that hit on 3s, so they don't hit on 2s. Wound on 3s, rend 2, and only 2 damage. So 4 attacks with his Firestorm Great Axe. At the end of the combat phase, if the model is within 3 inches of enemy unit, roll dice on 2+, make a pile in with this model, and attack again. Okay. Alright, I like that. Battle Fury, so his output's good. If the model is slain before it's removed from play, it can make a pile move and attack with all of its melee weapons. Again, not bad. Not bad. But it's got 6 wounds with a 4-up save and it's movement 4. So it's never going to get anywhere. It doesn't half damage, doesn't ignore rend. He already doesn't have a very good save. He's not fast. Not good is the answer because he's too slow. He's a pumpkin. Someone's asking me to look at the Lord of Plagues. Okay, get to Nurgle. I mean, look at the fucking Trog boss in comparison. Only look at the Trog boss, yeah, versus this new elf. 12 wounds with a 4-up save isn't as survivable as the Alarion, the Light of Eltharion. He's got 4 attacks, hit on 3s, wound on 3s, rend 2 and d6 damage, which isn't bad. You get any bonuses? Add 1 to bravery, regeneration, so he heals, which is good. Start at combat phase, roll 1 dice for each enemy within 3 inches of model's disability. You could do some mortal wounds. But he's a monster. He's a monster, and he's still not good. Anyway, he's great, obviously. Some would say he's the bestest. How dare I? Grimnir in the old world died at the beginning during the first Chaos Invasion, so they also killed him off at the start of AOS during the Age of Myth. So Grimnir is not the survival standard. Thanks, Grinaldi. I appreciate that. Hitting me with a fucking big lore at that point. Okay, he's not the survival standard. Is there an example of Dwardin survivability? You feel like they should. I mean, why is the elf the standard? He was eaten by a god and has been, inside the belly of the beast for years. I wouldn't say that. Anyway. Well, I'm just looking for any other... okay. The Eidolon. Let's do the Eidolon. Yeah, the aspect of the storm. It's not the wizard. No. Okay. This is the much larger non-monster character. So it's got 12 wounds, so it's got 5 more wounds than the light, and it's got a 3-up armor save, so the same. But it is a rendable armor save. It's got 4 attacks, hits on 3s, wounds on 2s, has rend 2, so not rend 3, and it does 2 damage. So not d3. Then he's got a hook, which is 4 attacks, 2s, 3s, rend 1 damage. And then he's got the fish, 2d6 attacks, force, red 1, no red, 1 damage. Big shout out to my friend Jonathan, who put the the Sword of Anti-Heroes. It's not called that. The sword that does d6 mortal wounds to heroes. Oh God, I've got no words today. What is it? It is called... It's not called the Sword of Anti-Heroes. Sword of Judgment. Thanks, Chris. Appreciate you. He put the Sword of Judgment on the Storm Shoal for the Eidolon because it's 2d6 attacks. So if you don't know, if you're on a 6 to hit with the Sword of Judgment, you do d6 mortal wounds. So he would roll 2d6 attacks with the fish, yeah, and then and then try and get loads of dice to roll 6s, which I thought was really clever. Anyway, reroll hit rolls of 1 and add 1 to the damage characteristic model's spear of Repressed Fury if this model made a charge move. So it could be damage 3. Sweet. Finally, heal D3 wounds allocated model after it makes charge move. All right, I'm into that. And then reroll wound rolls of 1 for friendly Idneth within 9 inches, so that's within range of itself. So it hits on 2s, reroll 1s. So it's looking pretty good. And then at the start of the combat phase, you can pick an enemy hero with wounds characteristic of less than 8. If that is within 3 inches of this model, subtract 1 from the hit rolls. So you can kind of make yourself a little bit survivable. So the Eidolon of Mathland, considering it's 300 or so points, is okay for a combat character, but the Light of Eltharion is way better. Already in output and defense, which is super weird. It's just, anyway, I think I've reiterated my point enough there. So, the Sword of Japan. I rolled an Eidolon of the Storm against the King on Terrorgeist fight 3 times with no buffs or CP. The King on Terrorgeist won handily every time. Yeah, that is the case. Sword of Judgment on a Tomb Prince in range of Cetra and 5 attacks doing D6 wounds on a 4+. Oh, nice! Let's go Mixed Death for an 80-point teleport that could carry. Yeah, okay. I'm into that. All right, well, unless anyone's got any questions before I go, let me know if you've got any Kairos for PM. Bobby Halls, I'm into it, let me tell you. I'm into it. I'm also into you guys. But I'm going to head off for the day. If anyone's got any questions, I've got no painting done, so fuck you all. These are never going to get done. I'm not going to lie to you. I wish they would, but anyway. Right, so some questions before I go. I guess one character that can fight the new elf in a duel is Gutrot Spume if you can roll a 4+. That's good. Desert Sketch, that's a good point. Would you rather fight 100 duck-sized horses or 1 horse-sized duck? 100 duck-sized horses is absolutely what I'd prefer. 100%. Because I don't think... Yeah, I'd fight 100 duck-sized horses. Because I'd just feel like a giant. Like in Gulliver's Travels, I'd just be like a legend. When will the next Games Workshop preview be? I think now they're back in production. I don't know if there'll be a preview. I think they'll just keep doing these articles, and we're going to start seeing these books. These leaks will be not these leaks. These rules are being put out. What are we on now? Saturday. Pre-order, I think, is going to be for the elves this Friday, next Saturday. So a week today is what I expect. So there we go. You should take Deepkin Thralls get an extra inch added. Should Deepkin Thralls get an extra inch added to their attack range? Yes, so that they can reach over their 32mm bases. Thanks for doing the Grand Alliance list shows. They're genuinely the most interesting to me. Oh, Circon, I'm glad. A big shout out to Sam for doing them with me. Well, mainly doing them, to be honest. I'm just there as the host. I'd give those a listen once over if you want. We had if you guys want a really interesting show to listen to, even if you're Age of Sigmar guys, me, Tom, and Nick had, I think, a fascinating conversation. You should listen to the show I did yesterday with Sam, or the podcast, or whatever you want. But me, Tom, and Nick had a great conversation on Thursday night about how we're going to review units in 40k in the future. It's led to me to think about how I'm going to review units in Age of Sigmar in the future as well, because sometimes you can say too much and sometimes you can say too little, and sometimes some units don't need really talking about. And the great way, the kind of the crux of the conversation was we should start to talk about units when it comes to the role that the unit is used for inside of an army list. So when you're looking at a unit, like for instance, the Light of Eltharion is going to be in your army list as a damage dealing unit. Like that's his job. Like he does survive, but his survivability isn't really much of a factor when we're talking about why you've chosen him. Because he's a good damage dealer because he can survive, but you've chosen him for the damage output. Whereas some damage dealing units you might take because their damage output is great, but they are unsurvivable, and you're okay with that. And anyway, it was a really good conversation. It took us a long time, like about an hour and a half or so, to get to some of the key points. But it's really interesting, and I encourage you guys to go and listen back to it, because I went away and wrote an article, which takes a lot for me to be like, I was like, I'm going to write an article last night, and it's not very often that the inspiration comes to me to write. It's not something I'm very good at. Yeah, really good convo. So also Rambo in the chat was there on Thursday helping us out with that conversation, which I thought was good. Pete Pratt, can you explain why Fanatics don't have the grok keyword? That has triggered me this week. I can, but it's really uncomplimentary to the Games Workshop rules writers. No, it's not. It's uncomplimentary to whoever their editor is and whoever is their quality control person, who I assume is the same person, because I think that person is pretty shit at their job. How can I reach out to you? You seem to never check. I don't, Desert Sketch. I'll drop you a message and how to get back to me easier. Afternoon Windy Massive. 40k Bunny, I have 100 plus podcasts to listen to. Too efficient. Yeah. Also, yesterday we celebrated, I'd just like you all to know, the road, I'm going to start saying the road to a million. Hashtag the road to a million. So we're at like 930,000 download podcasts, which is phenomenal. I never really ever expected that. But we probably in the next 6 to 8 weeks will be we'll hit a million, which is awesome. Like I honestly hadn't expected that, to be honest. Like I know that like there are YouTube videos that like someone's already got like 80,000 listens on a YouTube video or something, but bat reps and having conversations about Warhammer I think are very, very different beasts. And I've loved what I've done for the past few years. I've loved growing with you guys as a community, and I've really loved what we've produced as a group. I think we've slowly leveled up. Doesn't matter whether it be 40k Sigmar or the wargaming community as a whole. I think we've leveled everything up, which I think has been great, and I couldn't have done it without you guys, like people on Patreon, people who subscribe, or just people who jump in the chat and talk to me. So that's you dudes. So if you ever get the chance to share any of the podcasts or the YouTube videos or the Twitch videos with people who you think might be interested in some of the content, that would be really sweet. I'm really looking forward to hitting a million. This would be a fun thing to say. You're like, oh, I've got 1 million downloads on my podcast. If ever I can ever go to the pub again, it's one of the things I can say to someone. They'll be like, what'd you do? It's like, oh, yeah, I got a podcast, 1 million downloads. Like, nothing to talk about. Like, I am going to be super chuffed and a bit proud, and I'm not scared about saying it. So that would be sweet. So if you ever want to let anyone know about that, about the show, or anything that might accelerate that, I'd be keen as fuck. To get into it, so that'd be funky. But Robbie the Braggy, I know, right? It's not very like. But to be fair, Grinaldi, if I was a dispossessed, I'd be at the pub with a tankard, yeah, fucking shouting about it all day long. Virulent, million is huge. Oh yeah, it would be sweet. Like I'm super excited for it. Like that'd be fucking cool. It's just a stupid benchmark. It doesn't mean anything. It's just a fucking number. I mean, 900,000 sounds dumb. But 1 million sounds sweet. I might get myself a badge. Anyway, whatever. But I know some of you guys are having a tough time. Some countries, some restrictions are being lifted a little bit. Some aren't. Some people think that's good. Some think that's not good. Whatever you're doing right now, please stay safe and healthy. I started this 54 days ago to give you guys something to do during your lunch break for an hour a day. It's turned into this great beast where I get to talk to these incredible people most days. I get to speak to one of my heroes tomorrow, Sanice, and we are going to keep this going for a long time. I think that a lot of countries still aren't out of their area. Some people who are high risk are still going to be locked in. So I'm going to keep this going every day for the foreseeable future. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being on the Wargaming Patreon. Thank you for joining the chat. Thank you for listening to the podcast and staying hydrated. And thank you just for being here. You guys are the best. I love you all. Fuck you, buddies. And